Question 1. The investigation demonstrates that a ransomware attack has significantly disrupted network operations, impacting access to electronic health records (EHR) and patient scheduling systems. The IT security team has contained the immediate threat, but the full extent of the breach and the specific vulnerabilities exploited are still under detailed analysis. The Chief Information Security Officer, CISO, is under immense pressure from hospital administration to restore full network functionality immediately to minimize patient care disruptions and financial losses. The CISO is considering several immediate actions to expedite the restoration process. Which of the following actions best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for responding to such a security incident? Option A. Rely solely on the assurances of the EHR vendor that their systems are secure and will not be reinfected, and proceed with restoring all affected systems based on their guidance without independent verification of security patches. Option B. Prioritize the restoration of critical EHR systems by deploying pre-attack backups, while concurrently conducting a detailed forensic analysis of the compromised systems to identify and patch vulnerabilities before restoring less critical services. Option C. Restore only the essential patient care systems that are immediately required, leaving other affected systems offline indefinitely until a complete and exhaustive security audit can be performed, which may take several weeks. Option D. Immediately restore all network systems from the most recent available backups, assuming the backups are clean, and defer the detailed forensic analysis and vulnerability patching until after full operational restoration is achieved. The correct answer is B. Prioritize the restoration of critical EHR systems by deploying pre-attack backups, while concurrently conducting a detailed forensic analysis of the compromised systems to identify and patch vulnerabilities before restoring less critical services. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates a common yet critical challenge in healthcare IT, balancing the need for robust network security with the imperative of seamless patient care delivery. The scenario is professionally challenging because it forces a decision-maker to weigh immediate operational needs against long-term security posture and regulatory compliance. The pressure to restore services quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise patient data privacy and system integrity, potentially violating HIPAA regulations. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough, risk-based remediation process that aligns with HIPAA security rule. This involves a systematic assessment of the breach's scope, identification of vulnerabilities, implementation of corrective actions, and verification of their effectiveness before full system restoration. This methodical approach ensures that the underlying security weaknesses are addressed, preventing recurrence and demonstrating due diligence in protecting electronic protected health information. E5. It upholds the ethical obligation to safeguard patient data and comply with legal mandates. An incorrect approach that bypasses a comprehensive vulnerability assessment and remediation before restoring full network access is professionally unacceptable. This failure constitutes a direct violation of HIPAA security rule, specifically the requirements for risk analysis and risk management. By not fully understanding and mitigating the exploited vulnerabilities, the organization remains exposed to further attacks, increasing the likelihood of future breaches and continued noncompliance. This also represents an ethical failure to protect patient privacy and maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of EPHI. Another incorrect approach that involves restoring systems without adequate security patching or reconfiguration, based solely on vendor assurances without independent verification, is also professionally unacceptable. This overlooks the critical responsibility of the covered entity to ensure the security of its own systems, regardless of vendor claims. It risks reintroducing the same or similar vulnerabilities, leading to further breaches and regulatory penalties. Ethically, it demonstrates a lack of diligence in protecting patient information. A third incorrect approach that involves isolating affected systems indefinitely without a clear remediation plan or communication strategy is also professionally problematic. While isolation is a necessary first step, indefinite isolation without a path to secure restoration hinders patient care and operational continuity. It can also lead to data silos and potential loss of critical information if not managed properly. While not a direct regulatory violation in itself, It fails to meet the operational and ethical obligations of a healthcare organization to provide care and manage information effectively and securely. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured incident response plan that includes immediate containment, thorough investigation and analysis, risk assessment, remediation planning and execution, verification of remediation and post-incident review. This process should be guided by regulatory requirements, like HIPAA, ethical principles of patient data protection, and organizational policies. Collaboration with security experts, IT staff, and relevant stakeholders is crucial to ensure a balanced and effective response. Question 2. Upon reviewing the proposed integration of the hospital's electronic health record (EHR) system with its patient billing and scheduling software, which approach best ensures compliance with U.S. healthcare regulations and safeguards patient care? Option A. Expedite the integration process by prioritizing vendor-provided implementation guides to achieve cost savings and operational efficiencies quickly. Option B. Focus primarily on streamlining administrative workflows and reducing billing errors, with secondary consideration for clinical data accuracy and patient privacy. Option C. Implement the integration based on the assumption that existing security measures within individual systems will adequately protect data across the combined platform. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates potential effects on patient safety, data integrity, privacy, and security, ensuring alignment with HIPAA and high-tech requirements. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive impact assessment that evaluates potential effects on patient safety, data integrity, privacy, and security, ensuring alignment with HIPAA and high-tech requirements. Explanation: scenario analysis, integrating clinical systems e.g., electronic health records (EHRs) with administrative systems e.g., billing, scheduling, presents a significant professional challenge. The primary difficulty lies in ensuring seamless data flow, accuracy, and security across disparate systems that may have different architectures, data standards, and security protocols. A failure in integration can lead to patient safety risks, e.g., incorrect billing impacting access to care, operational inefficiencies, and significant compliance breaches. Careful judgment is required to balance the benefits of interoperability with the inherent risks. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive impact assessment that prioritizes patient safety and data integrity, while adhering to relevant U.S. regulations such as the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, and the Health Information Technology for Economic and Clinical Health High-Tech Act. This assessment must meticulously evaluate how the integration will affect clinical workflows, patient data privacy and security, and the accuracy of both clinical and administrative information. It necessitates a thorough understanding of data mapping, potential points of failure, and the development of robust contingency plans. This approach represents best professional practice because it proactively identifies and mitigates risks, ensuring that the integration supports, rather than hinders, the delivery of quality healthcare and maintains compliance with federal mandates designed to protect patient information and promote secure health IT. Incorrect approach is analysis. Focusing solely on cost reduction without a thorough risk assessment for patient safety and data privacy is professionally unacceptable. This approach violates the ethical obligation to prioritize patient well-being and the regulatory requirements of HIPAA, which mandates safeguards for protected health information. 5. Such a narrow focus can lead to data breaches, inaccurate patient records, and ultimately compromised care. Prioritizing the speed of implementation over data validation and security testing is also professionally unacceptable. This haste can result in data corruption, interoperability issues, and vulnerabilities that expose PHI, directly contravening HIPAA security rule. The potential for patient harm due to erroneous data or unauthorized access is a significant ethical and regulatory failure. Implementing integration based on vendor recommendations without independent validation of security and interoperability is professionally unsound. While vendor input is valuable, healthcare organizations have a legal and ethical responsibility to ensure that their systems meet stringent security standards and function correctly within their specific environment. Relying solely on vendor assurances without due diligence can lead to compliance gaps and security weaknesses, violating the principles of due care and due diligence mandated by HIPAA. Professional reasoning. professionals should adopt a risk-based approach to system integration. This involves a structured process of identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities, assessing their likelihood and impact, and implementing controls to mitigate them. Key steps include: 1. Defining clear integration objectives that encompass clinical, operational, and financial goals. 2. Conducting a thorough risk assessment, specifically examining patient safety, data privacy, security, and operational continuity. 3. Developing a detailed integration plan that includes data mapping, testing protocols, and rollback procedures. 4. Ensuring strict adherence to all relevant U.S. regulations, particularly HIPAA and HITECH, throughout the planning, implementation, and ongoing maintenance phases. 5. Establishing robust monitoring and auditing mechanisms to detect and respond to any integration failures or security incidents promptly. 6. Prioritizing ongoing training for staff on new integrated workflows and data handling procedures. Question 3. Benchmark analysis indicates that a healthcare organization is seeking to enhance its health information exchange capabilities to improve care coordination and patient engagement. The organization is considering several strategies for achieving greater interoperability. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the regulatory framework and best practices for health data standards and interoperability in the United States? Option A. Adopting a strategy that prioritizes the use of established, industry-recognized health data standards, e.g., HL7FHR, CCDA, and secure API frameworks to facilitate seamless and compliant data exchange across different healthcare entities. Option B. Prioritizing the collection of large volumes of patient data for analytics, with secondary consideration given to the specific standards used for its transmission and interoperability. Option C. Implementing a custom-built data integration solution that aggregates data from various sources without strict adherence to recognized health data standards, prioritizing speed of data transfer. Option D. Focusing on developing proprietary data formats and exchange protocols to maintain competitive advantage, limiting external system integration. The correct answer is C. Implementing a custom-built data integration solution that aggregates data from various sources without strict adherence to recognized health data standards, prioritizing speed of data transfer. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the imperative for data interoperability to improve patient care and operational efficiency with the stringent requirements of health data standards and privacy regulations. The rapid evolution of health IT and the diverse landscape of data exchange methods create a complex environment where missteps can lead to significant compliance issues, data breaches, and compromised patient trust. Careful judgment is required to select an approach that is both effective for interoperability and fully compliant with the specified regulatory framework. Correct approach analysis. Adopting a strategy that prioritizes the use of established, industry-recognized health data standards, such as those mandated or recommended by U.S. federal regulations, e.g., HIPAA, HITECH Act, ONC Cures Act Final Rule, is the best professional practice. This approach ensures that data can be exchanged and understood across different healthcare systems, facilitating continuity of care and enabling advanced analytics. Specifically, leveraging standards like HL7FHR, fast healthcare interoperability resources, for API-based data exchange and adherence to data formatting standards like CCDA, consolidated clinical document architecture, for document exchange, directly addresses the interoperability goals while aligning with regulatory mandates for data sharing and patient access. This proactive adoption of compliant standards minimizes legal and ethical risks by demonstrating a commitment to secure and standardized data practices. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach would be to implement a proprietary data exchange solution that bypasses established health data standards. This is a regulatory failure because it directly contravenes the intent and often the explicit requirements of regulations like the ONC Cures Act Final Rule, which promotes interoperability through standardized data formats and APIs. Ethically, it creates data silos, hindering care coordination and potentially compromising patient safety by limiting access to comprehensive health information. Another incorrect approach would be to focus solely on data volume and speed of exchange without rigorous validation of the data standards being used. This is a regulatory failure, as it risks non-compliance with data integrity and security requirements mandated by HIPAA. Ethically, it is unacceptable because it can lead to the transmission of inaccurate or incomplete patient information, jeopardizing patient care and trust. A third incorrect approach would be to prioritize ease of implementation over adherence to data privacy and security protocols embedded within health data standards. This is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It violates HIPAA security rule, which mandates safeguards for electronic protected health information, E-FI, and the privacy rule, which governs the use and disclosure of ePHI. Such an approach exposes the organization to severe penalties and erodes patient confidence. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the applicable U.S. regulatory landscape, including HIPAA, HITECH, and the ONC Cures Act final rule. This involves identifying the specific data standards and interoperability requirements mandated or encouraged by these regulations. The next step is to conduct a risk assessment that evaluates potential interoperability solutions against these regulatory requirements, focusing on compliance, security, privacy, and the ability to exchange data meaningfully. Prioritizing solutions that leverage widely adopted, certified standards like HL7F-HER and adhere to established data models ensures both technical efficacy and regulatory adherence. Continuous monitoring and updating of practices to align with evolving regulations and standards are crucial for maintaining compliance and best practice. Question 4. Examination of the data shows a request from an external research institution for access to patient records to conduct a study on treatment outcomes. The research team has provided a letter of intent outlining their research goals, but has not included any patient consent forms or a waiver from an institutional review board (IRB). The Health Information Management Department is tasked with determining the appropriate course of action for fulfilling this request in compliance with U.S. federal regulations. Option A. Deny the request and inform the research institution that patient records cannot be shared without explicit patient authorization or an IRB-approved waiver. Option B. Release the requested patient records directly to the research institution, as they have provided a letter of intent and assured confidentiality. Option C. Release the requested patient records after ensuring the data is de-identified according to HIPAA safe harbor methodology. Option D. Release the requested patient records after obtaining verbal confirmation from the principal investigator that the data will be used solely for the stated research purpose. The correct answer is C. Release the requested patient records after ensuring the data is de-identified according to HIPAA safe harbor methodology. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in health information management, balancing the need for data accessibility for research with the stringent requirements for patient privacy and data security. The professional challenge lies in interpreting and applying complex regulations to a real-world situation, ensuring that all actions taken are compliant and ethically sound. Careful judgment is required to avoid breaches that could lead to significant legal penalties, reputational damage, and erosion of patient trust. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA privacy rule. Specifically, it involves obtaining appropriate authorization for the use and disclosure of protected health information, FI, for research purposes. This aligns with the principle of patient consent and control over their health data, a cornerstone of ethical health information management and regulatory compliance. By seeking de-identification or explicit patient consent, the organization upholds its legal and ethical obligations to protect patient privacy. An incorrect approach that involves releasing identifiable PHI without proper authorization directly violates the HIPAA privacy rule. This failure constitutes a significant regulatory breach, exposing the organization to substantial fines and legal repercussions. Releasing PHI without a valid authorization or a waiver from an institutional review board (IRB) or privacy board is a clear violation of patient rights and privacy protections mandated by HIPAA. Another incorrect approach, releasing de-identified data without a robust de-identification methodology that meets HIPAA standards, also poses a regulatory risk. While de-identification is a permissible method for data use, it must be performed correctly to ensure that the data can no longer be reasonably used to identify an individual. Failure to meet these standards, even if unintentional, can still result in a breach of privacy. Finally, an approach that relies solely on the researcher's assurance of ethical conduct, without independent verification or adherence to established protocols for data access and use, is insufficient. While researchers are bound by ethical principles, organizational policies and regulatory frameworks provide the necessary safeguards and oversight mechanisms to ensure compliance and protect patient information. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the specific regulatory requirements applicable to the situation, in this case, HIPAA. This involves understanding the definitions of PHI, permissible uses and disclosures, and the requirements for research data. The next step is to assess the proposed data use against these regulations. If the use involves identifiable PHI, the framework dictates exploring options such as obtaining patient authorization, seeking an IRB/privacy board waiver, or de-identifying the data according to HIPAA standards. Documentation of the decision-making process and the chosen course of action is crucial for accountability and auditability. Question 5. Performance analysis shows that our organization's electronic health record system, laboratory information system (LIS), and picture archiving and communication system (PACS) are operating in data silos, making it difficult to conduct comprehensive clinical quality improvement initiatives. We need to identify trends in patient outcomes and identify areas for process enhancement. Which of the following strategies best addresses this challenge while adhering to U.S. regulatory frameworks? Option A. Rely on manual data extraction and compilation from departmental reports generated by each system for periodic quality reviews. Option B. Develop a secure, centralized data warehouse that aggregates de-identified or appropriately protected health information from all clinical systems, enabling robust analytical capabilities for quality improvement. Option C. Grant direct, ad hoc query access to all clinical staff across all systems to allow them to pull data as needed for their quality improvement projects. Option D. Implement a new, advanced analytics platform that can directly query each disparate system independently, assuming each system has its own security measures. The correct answer is B. Develop a secure, centralized data warehouse that aggregates de-identified or appropriately protected health information from all clinical systems, enabling robust analytical capabilities for quality improvement. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT, where the effective use of data for clinical quality improvement is hindered by data silos and a lack of standardized reporting. The professional challenge lies in identifying the most effective and compliant strategy to leverage existing data for actionable insights, balancing technological capabilities with regulatory requirements and patient privacy. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any proposed solution not only improves quality, but also adheres to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, and other relevant U.S. healthcare regulations. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves establishing a secure, integrated data repository that aggregates data from disparate clinical systems. This repository should be designed with robust access controls and de-identification/anonymization techniques where appropriate, aligning with HIPAA privacy rule and security rule. By creating a unified view of patient data, clinicians and quality improvement teams can perform comprehensive analysis, identify trends, measure performance against benchmarks, and implement targeted interventions. This approach directly supports the goals of clinical quality improvement by enabling data-driven decision-making, which is a cornerstone of modern healthcare delivery and a key focus of HIMSS certification. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves directly querying individual clinical systems without an integrated data strategy. This is problematic because it perpetuates data silos, leading to incomplete analysis and potentially inaccurate conclusions. Furthermore, it increases the risk of unauthorized access and data breaches if direct queries bypass established security protocols, violating HIPAA security rule. Another incorrect approach is to rely solely on manual data extraction and aggregation from various departmental reports. This method is time-consuming, prone to human error, and often results in outdated information, hindering timely quality improvement initiatives. It also poses a significant risk of data inconsistencies and potential breaches during manual handling, contravening HIPAA requirements for data integrity and security. A third incorrect approach is to implement a new, standalone analytics tool without integrating it with existing clinical systems or establishing clear data governance policies. This can lead to further data fragmentation and may not address the root cause of the problem, potentially creating compliance issues if data is not handled according to HIPAA standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach this situation by first understanding the current data landscape and identifying the specific quality improvement goals. They should then evaluate potential solutions based on their ability to integrate data securely, facilitate comprehensive analysis, and comply with all applicable regulations, particularly HIPAA. A phased approach, starting with establishing a secure data foundation and then implementing analytics capabilities, is often the most effective. Collaboration with clinical staff, IT security, and compliance officers is crucial to ensure that the chosen strategy is both technically sound and legally compliant. Question 6. Compliance review shows that a healthcare organization has recently implemented several new advanced healthcare information systems, including an AI-powered diagnostic tool and a patient portal with enhanced communication features. While these systems have demonstrably improved diagnostic accuracy and patient engagement, the review also indicates that a formal, comprehensive risk assessment specifically for these new systems and the subsequent implementation of tailored security safeguards has not yet been completed. The organization is operating under the assumption that the vendor's standard security protocols are sufficient. Option A. Rely on the vendor's assurances of security compliance and focus on user training for the new systems, assuming that any potential issues will be addressed reactively. Option B. Implement basic access controls and audit logging for the new systems, considering this sufficient to meet immediate compliance needs while deferring a comprehensive risk assessment. Option C. Proceed with full integration and utilization of the new systems, documenting the vendor's security claims as evidence of compliance, and plan to conduct a risk assessment at a later, unspecified date. Option D. Immediately halt the use of the new systems until a thorough risk assessment is conducted and appropriate security safeguards are implemented, prioritizing patient data protection in accordance with HIPAA regulations. The correct answer is D. Immediately halt the use of the new systems until a thorough risk assessment is conducted and appropriate security safeguards are implemented, prioritizing patient data protection in accordance with HIPAA regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT where the rapid adoption of new technologies, while beneficial for patient care, can outpace the development and implementation of robust security and privacy protocols. The professional challenge lies in balancing the immediate need for advanced information systems with the ongoing obligation to protect sensitive patient health information. 5. As mandated by U.S. federal regulations, specifically the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA. The complexity arises from ensuring that the integration of these new systems does not inadvertently create vulnerabilities or compromise patient privacy, requiring a proactive and comprehensive approach to risk management. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a thorough risk assessment and the implementation of appropriate safeguards before full system deployment. This aligns directly with the HIPAA security rule, which requires covered entities to conduct a risk analysis to identify potential risks and vulnerabilities to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of electronic protected health information. E5. By developing and implementing a comprehensive security plan that addresses identified risks, including access controls, encryption, and audit trails, the organization demonstrates a commitment to safeguarding PHI. This proactive stance is crucial for maintaining patient trust and avoiding regulatory penalties. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the functional benefits of the new system without adequately addressing security and privacy risks fails to meet the requirements of the HIPAA security rule. This oversight can lead to breaches of ePHI, resulting in significant financial penalties, reputational damage, and loss of patient confidence. Another incorrect approach that relies on the vendor's default security settings without independent verification is also professionally unacceptable. Vendors may offer baseline security, but it is the responsibility of the covered entity to ensure that these settings are adequate for their specific environment and meet regulatory requirements. Furthermore, delaying security implementation until after a potential incident is a reactive and negligent strategy that violates the spirit and letter of HIPAA, which emphasizes preventative measures. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the regulatory landscape, HIPAA in this case. This involves identifying all applicable regulations and guidelines. Next, a thorough assessment of the proposed system's functionality and its potential impact on PHI is necessary. This assessment should be followed by a comprehensive risk analysis to identify potential threats and vulnerabilities. Based on the risk assessment, appropriate security and privacy safeguards must be designed and implemented. Finally, ongoing monitoring, auditing, and regular updates to security protocols are essential to maintain compliance and protect patient data effectively. Question 7. Analysis of best practices for selecting a clinical decision support system, CDSS, for a hospital network, considering its potential impact on clinician workflow and patient safety. What approach best aligns with regulatory expectations and ethical considerations for healthcare information management? Option A. Choose a CDSS based primarily on the lowest acquisition cost and the vendor's promises of future enhancements, without independent verification of current clinical effectiveness. Option B. Implement a CDSS that offers a comprehensive suite of alerts and recommendations across a wide spectrum of medical conditions, even if it means overwhelming clinicians with information and potentially causing alert fatigue. Option C. Select the CDSS with the most advanced algorithmic capabilities and the broadest range of features, regardless of demonstrated clinical impact or workflow integration challenges. Option D. Prioritize CDSS solutions that have undergone rigorous, independent validation, demonstrating significant improvements in specific patient outcomes and adherence to evidence-based clinical guidelines, while also assessing their seamless integration into existing workflows. Correct answer is D. Prioritize CDSS solutions that have undergone rigorous, independent validation, demonstrating significant improvements in specific patient outcomes and adherence to evidence-based clinical guidelines, while also assessing their seamless integration into existing workflows. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT implementation, ensuring that a clinical decision support system, CDSS, effectively integrates into existing clinical workflows without introducing new risks or inefficiencies. The professional challenge lies in balancing the potential benefits of CDSS, such as improved diagnostic accuracy and adherence to best practices, with the practical realities of clinician adoption, system usability, and the potential for alert fatigue or misinterpretation. Careful judgment is required to select a CDSS that is not only technically sound, but also clinically relevant and seamlessly integrated. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a comprehensive evaluation of CDSS options that prioritizes evidence-based clinical guidelines and demonstrated impact on patient outcomes. This approach aligns with the core principles of healthcare quality improvement and patient safety, which are implicitly supported by regulatory frameworks like HIPAA in the U.S., which mandates the protection of patient health information and encourages the use of technology to improve care. A CDSS that is rigorously validated against established clinical pathways and has a proven track record of improving specific clinical metrics, e.g., reducing medication errors, improving adherence to sepsis protocols, is more likely to be adopted by clinicians and achieve its intended benefits. This focus on evidence and outcomes ensures that the CDSS contributes positively to patient care and meets the implicit expectations of regulatory bodies for quality and safety. Incorrect approach is analysis, focusing solely on the technical sophistication of a CDSS, such as its advanced algorithms or integration capabilities, without a thorough assessment of its clinical relevance and impact on workflow, represents a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This approach risks implementing a system that is complex but ultimately unhelpful or even detrimental to patient care, potentially leading to increased errors due to alert fatigue or misinterpretation. It fails to meet the implicit expectation of healthcare regulations that technology should demonstrably improve patient care and safety. Prioritizing a CDSS based primarily on its cost-effectiveness or the vendor's marketing claims, without independent validation of its clinical efficacy, is also professionally unacceptable. This approach neglects the fundamental ethical obligation to provide the best possible care and can lead to the adoption of a system that does not deliver on its promises, potentially wasting resources and failing to improve patient outcomes. Regulatory bodies expect healthcare organizations to make informed decisions based on evidence, not just financial considerations or persuasive sales pitches. Selecting a CDSS that offers a wide array of features but lacks clear evidence of improving specific clinical decision-making processes or patient outcomes is another flawed approach. This can lead to a system that is overwhelming for clinicians and does not provide actionable insights, thereby failing to achieve the intended purpose of a CDSS and potentially introducing new risks. It deviates from the principle of using technology to enhance, not hinder, clinical judgment and patient safety, which is a cornerstone of responsible healthcare information management. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a structured decision-making process that begins with clearly defining the clinical problem or area for improvement that the CDSS is intended to address. This should be followed by a thorough review of existing evidence-based clinical guidelines and best practices relevant to that problem. Potential CDSS solutions should then be evaluated against these guidelines, with a strong emphasis on their demonstrated ability to improve specific measurable clinical outcomes. Vendor demonstrations and technical specifications are secondary to evidence of clinical utility and impact. A pilot implementation or trial period involving end-user clinicians is crucial to assess usability, workflow integration, and the potential for alert fatigue. Finally, the chosen CDSS must be evaluated for its compliance with all relevant privacy and security regulations, such as HIPAA, ensuring that patient data is protected throughout its use. Question 8. Quality control measures reveal that the definition and scope of healthcare information systems, HIMSS, within the organization are inconsistently applied across various departments, leading to potential gaps in data security and management. To rectify this, a cross-functional team is tasked with establishing a clear and comprehensive definition of HIMSS for the organization, ensuring alignment with federal regulations. Which of the following approaches best defines the scope of healthcare information systems for this organization? Option A. Encompass only systems that are actively used for direct patient care at the point of service, excluding any systems used for administrative functions, research, or historical data archiving. Option B. Limit the scope to only those systems directly managed by the Information Technology Department that are currently in active use for electronic health records and clinical documentation. Option C. Focus exclusively on systems that are part of the primary electronic health record (AER) platform, excluding ancillary systems like laboratory, radiology, or patient portal applications. Option D. Include all systems that capture, store, transmit, or process protected health information, PHI, as well as any system integral to patient care delivery, clinical decision-making, or operational efficiency that involves health data. The correct answer is D. Include all systems that capture, store, transmit, or process protected health information, PHI, as well as any system integral to patient care delivery, clinical decision-making, or operational efficiency that involves health data. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT where the scope and definition of healthcare information systems, HIMSS, are not uniformly understood across different departments. This ambiguity can lead to misallocation of resources, inconsistent data management practices, and potential compliance risks. The professional challenge lies in establishing a clear, universally accepted definition and scope of HIMSS that aligns with regulatory requirements and organizational goals, ensuring all relevant systems are identified and managed appropriately. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a comprehensive review of all systems that capture, store, transmit, or process protected health information, PHI, or are integral to patient care delivery and clinical decision-making. This aligns with the broad definition of HIMSS under U.S. regulations, such as HIPAA, which encompasses any system used to manage health information. By including systems that support clinical workflows, patient registration, billing, and even research data management, when it involves patient information, the organization ensures a holistic view of its information assets and their associated risks and compliance obligations. This approach promotes data integrity, security, and interoperability, which are core tenets of effective HIMSS management and regulatory compliance. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach focuses solely on systems directly involved in electronic health records, (EHR), and clinical documentation. This is a failure because it narrowly defines HIMSS, excluding other critical systems that handle PHI or significantly impact patient care, such as patient portals, laboratory information systems (LIS), or picture archiving and communication systems (PACS). This limited scope can lead to these excluded systems not receiving adequate security measures, data governance, or integration efforts, creating compliance gaps and operational inefficiency. Another incorrect approach prioritizes only systems directly managed by the IT department. This is flawed because many clinical departments may utilize or manage systems that fall under the definition of HIMSS, even if they are not centrally administered by IT. For example, a departmental research database that collects patient data or a specialized diagnostic imaging system might be overlooked. This departmental silo approach can result in fragmented data, inconsistent security policies, and a lack of oversight for systems handling sensitive health information, violating the comprehensive nature of HIMSS management expected under regulations. A third incorrect approach limits the scope to systems that are currently in active use for direct patient care, excluding historical data archives or systems used for administrative functions like billing and scheduling. This is problematic as historical patient data is still considered protected health information and subject to retention and security requirements. Furthermore, administrative systems often contain PHI and are critical for the operational functioning of the healthcare organization, impacting patient care indirectly. Excluding these systems creates vulnerabilities and potential noncompliance with data lifecycle management and privacy regulations. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic and inclusive approach to defining the scope of HIMSS. This involves consulting relevant regulatory frameworks, e.g., HIPAA in the U.S., understanding organizational workflows, and engaging stakeholders from IT, clinical departments, and administration. A risk-based assessment should then be applied to prioritize management and security efforts. This decision-making process should be iterative, with regular reviews to account for evolving technologies and regulatory landscapes. The goal is to ensure all systems that touch patient information or are critical to healthcare operations are identified, secured, and managed in a compliant and efficient manner. Question 9. The control framework reveals that a healthcare organization is developing a new patient portal to enhance patient engagement and provide access to their health information. During the design phase, a critical decision point arises regarding the initial scope of patient access to their own health records. Considering the paramount importance of protecting protected health information, under U.S. federal regulations, which of the following approaches best balances patient access with robust privacy and security safeguards? Option A. Grant immediate, unrestricted access to all sections of the electronic health record, including physician notes, test results, and imaging reports, upon initial patient registration, with a disclaimer that patients are responsible for safeguarding their login credentials. Option B. Require patients to submit a formal written request for each specific piece of health information they wish to access through the portal, with a mandatory 30-day review period by the IT security department before granting access. Option C. Limit patient access exclusively to demographic information updates and appointment scheduling functionalities, deferring access to any clinical data until a future, unspecified phase of development, citing potential security risks as the primary reason. Option D. Implement a phased rollout of patient access, beginning with access to appointment summaries and medication lists, accompanied by comprehensive patient education on portal security and privacy, with a clear process for gradually expanding access to more detailed clinical information based on validated system security and user proficiency. The correct answer is D. Implement a phased rollout of patient access, beginning with access to appointment summaries and medication lists, accompanied by comprehensive patient education on portal security and privacy, with a clear process for gradually expanding access to more detailed clinical information based on validated system security and user proficiency. Explanation. The control framework reveals a common challenge in healthcare information management, balancing the need for data accessibility for patient care with the stringent requirements for protecting sensitive health information. This scenario is professionally challenging because a healthcare organization is implementing a new patient portal, and a critical decision point arises regarding the level of access granted to patients for their own health records. The potential for both significant patient empowerment and substantial privacy breaches necessitates careful judgment. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes patient privacy and security in alignment with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, privacy and security rules. Specifically, it emphasizes a phased rollout of access, starting with less sensitive information and gradually expanding based on user training and system validation. This approach ensures that the organization adheres to HIPAA requirements for safeguarding protected health information. 5. By implementing appropriate administrative, physical, and technical safeguards. It also aligns with the ethical principle of beneficence by ensuring that the portal is implemented in a way that minimizes harm to patients, including the risk of unauthorized access or disclosure of their PHI. The focus on patient education and consent further reinforces compliance with HIPAA individual rights provisions. An incorrect approach that grants full, unrestricted access to all health information upon initial portal registration fails to implement adequate safeguards. This would be a direct violation of the HIPAA security rules requirement for risk analysis and the implementation of security measures to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of electronic PHI. It also risks violating the HIPAA privacy rule by potentially disclosing PHI without proper authorization or for purposes not permitted by the rule. Another incorrect approach that limits patient access to only demographic information and appointment scheduling, while seemingly secure, fails to meet the spirit of patient empowerment and the HIPAA right of access. While it prioritizes security, it may not adequately facilitate patient engagement in their own care, which is a key objective of patient portals. This approach could be seen as an overly restrictive interpretation of security requirements, potentially hindering legitimate patient access to their own health information without a clear, documented risk-based justification. A third incorrect approach that relies solely on a single, complex password for all access, without additional authentication factors or access controls, is insufficient. This would likely fail to meet the HIPAA security rules requirements for unique user identification and access controls, making it vulnerable to unauthorized access and disclosure. The lack of robust authentication and authorization mechanisms creates a significant security risk. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a comprehensive risk assessment, as mandated by HIPAA. This includes identifying potential threats and vulnerabilities to PHI, evaluating the likelihood and impact of those threats, and implementing appropriate security measures to mitigate identified risks. Organizations should also consider the ethical implications of their decisions, ensuring that patient rights and well-being are paramount. A phased implementation, coupled with ongoing monitoring, auditing, and user training, is a prudent strategy for managing the complexities of health information access and security. Question 10. Research into the importance of interoperability in healthcare. A healthcare organization receives a request from a patient to have their electronic health record (EHR) data transferred to a new provider. The patient is experiencing a critical health event and needs immediate access to their medical history. The organization's IT department has identified several potential methods for transferring the data, ranging from secure, standardized interoperability platforms to less secure manual methods. Considering the U.S. regulatory framework, which approach best balances the patient's immediate need with regulatory compliance and the long-term goals of interoperability. Option A. Utilize a certified health information exchange, HI, or a direct secure messaging protocol that is compliant with HIPAA standards to transfer the EHR data, ensuring patient consent is obtained and documented. Option B. Provide the patient with a USB drive containing their raw EHR data files, allowing them to transfer it themselves to the new provider. Option C. Manually re-enter the patient's critical medical information into a new, unencrypted document and have it faxed to the new provider, as this is the fastest method. Option D. Share the patient's EHR data via a personal email account to the new provider's publicly listed email address to expedite the transfer. The correct answer is A. Utilize a certified health information exchange, HI, or a direct secure messaging protocol that is compliant with HIPAA standards to transfer the EHR data, ensuring patient consent is obtained and documented. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate needs of a specific patient with the broader, systemic benefits of interoperability, all while adhering to U.S. healthcare regulations. The decision-maker must consider how to facilitate necessary data exchange without compromising patient privacy or security, and without creating undue burden on the involved parties. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken aligns with the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, and promotes the long-term goals of improved patient care through seamless information flow. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a structured, compliant, and collaborative method for achieving interoperability. By engaging with the patient, the sending provider, and the receiving provider, it ensures that all parties are informed and consent to the data exchange, thereby upholding HIPAA privacy rule. Furthermore, it leverages existing secure channels and protocols, aligning with HIPAA security rule and promoting the adoption of standards that facilitate future interoperability. This proactive and ethical engagement fosters trust and ensures that the exchange is both effective and legally sound, contributing to better patient outcomes and the advancement of healthcare information systems. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the patient's immediate request without verifying the sending provider's authorization or the security of the transmission method fails to comply with HIPAA. Specifically, it risks unauthorized disclosure of protected health information, FI, under the privacy rule. Another incorrect approach that involves manually re-entering data without a secure, auditable process introduces significant risks of data inaccuracy and potential breaches, violating the security rules requirements for integrity and access controls. A third incorrect approach that involves sharing patient data via unsecured personal communication channels is a direct violation of HIPAA security rule, exposing PHI to unauthorized access and potential compromise. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the patient's request and the purpose of the data exchange. This should be followed by a thorough review of relevant regulations, particularly HIPAA, to identify requirements for consent, authorization, and security. Next, assess the available interoperability mechanisms and their compliance with established standards. Engage with all relevant stakeholders to ensure transparency and obtain necessary permissions. Finally, document the entire process, including the rationale for the chosen method and any consent obtained, to ensure accountability and auditability. Question 11. Compliance review shows that a healthcare organization is implementing a new patient management system that will exchange data with its existing electronic health record AIR, using Health Level 7, HL7, V2, X messages. The implementation team is considering several approaches to ensure the successful and compliant integration of this new system. Which approach best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for healthcare information exchange? Option A. Rely solely on the vendor's assurance that the new system is HL7 compliant and proceed with direct integration without independent validation of the message content or structure. Option B. Prioritize the implementation of only the most fundamental HL7 message types, e.g., ADT for patient demographics, to minimize initial complexity, deferring validation of more complex message types to a later phase. Option C. Implement a robust message validation process that includes schema validation against defined HL7 message structures and comprehensive error handling routines to identify and address any data discrepancies or malformed messages before they are processed by the EHR. Option D. Develop custom middleware to transform HL7 messages into a proprietary data format, bypassing standard HL7 parsing and validation to streamline data ingestion into the EHR. The correct answer is C. Implement a robust message validation process that includes schema validation against defined HL7 message structures and comprehensive error handling routines to identify and address any data discrepancies or malformed messages before they are processed by the EHR. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT where the adoption of new technologies must align with existing interoperability standards to ensure patient safety and data integrity. The professional challenge lies in balancing the desire for advanced functionality with the imperative to maintain seamless data exchange, which is critical for coordinated care and regulatory compliance. Careful judgment is required to select an HL7 implementation strategy that is both effective and compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to established HL7 standards and best practices for message validation and error handling. This ensures that data exchange between systems is accurate, complete, and interpretable, directly supporting patient safety and regulatory requirements such as those mandated by HIPAA for the protection and exchange of electronic health information. Proactive testing and validation are essential to identify and rectify potential interoperability issues before they impact clinical workflows or patient care. An incorrect approach that bypasses standard validation mechanisms, such as directly ingesting messages without proper parsing or schema validation, poses significant regulatory and ethical risks. This could lead to data corruption, misinterpretation of patient information, and ultimately, patient harm. Ethically, it violates the principle of beneficence by not ensuring the quality of information used in patient care. From a regulatory standpoint, it could be considered a failure to implement adequate safeguards for protected health information, FI, under HIPAA, potentially leading to breaches or improper disclosures. Another incorrect approach that relies solely on vendor claims of HL7 compliance without independent verification is also professionally unacceptable. It abdicates responsibility for ensuring interoperability and patient safety. It fails to uphold the professional duty of due diligence and could result in noncompliance with interoperability mandates and potential penalties. A third incorrect approach that focuses on implementing only the most basic HL7 message types without considering the broader clinical context or future interoperability needs is short-sighted. While it might address immediate needs, it can create future integration challenges and hinder the organization's ability to leverage data for analytics, research, or improved care coordination, ultimately impacting the quality of care and operational efficiency. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a thorough understanding of the organization's current and future interoperability needs, a deep knowledge of relevant HL7 standards and their implementation guidelines, and a commitment to rigorous testing and validation. Professionals should engage in a risk assessment to identify potential impacts of different implementation strategies on patient safety, data integrity, and regulatory compliance. Collaboration with vendors, clinical stakeholders, and IT teams is crucial to ensure a comprehensive and compliant solution. Question 12. Stakeholder feedback indicates that the new electronic health record system's reporting functionalities are not meeting the immediate needs of the clinical team for daily patient status updates. Considering the HIMSS certification framework and relevant U.S. healthcare regulations, which approach best optimizes the evaluation and assessment of this health IT project. Option A. Prioritize the development of entirely new reporting features requested by a subset of stakeholders, without a thorough assessment of the existing system's capabilities or its alignment with overall project goals and regulatory mandates. Option B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the system's reporting module's performance metrics against predefined objectives and industry best practices, alongside targeted interviews with key clinical users to understand specific workflow gaps and their impact on patient care, while cross-referencing findings with HIPAA and promoting interoperability requirements. Option C. Immediately implement a series of ad hoc modifications to the reporting interface based on the most vocal stakeholder requests to improve perceived usability and expedite daily updates. Option D. Focus solely on the technical specifications of the reporting module to identify any bugs or errors, assuming that any user dissatisfaction stems from a lack of technical understanding. The correct answer is B. Conduct a comprehensive review of the system's reporting module's performance metrics against predefined objectives and industry best practices, alongside targeted interviews with key clinical users to understand specific workflow gaps and their impact on patient care, while cross-referencing findings with HIPAA and promoting interoperability requirements. Explanation. This scenario presents a common challenge in health IT project management, balancing diverse stakeholder needs and expectations with the objective evaluation of project performance. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the evaluation process is not unduly influenced by subjective opinions or immediate operational pressures, but rather remains grounded in established methodologies that align with regulatory requirements for patient safety, data integrity, and system effectiveness. Careful judgment is required to discern between constructive feedback that can inform process optimization and feedback that might lead to suboptimal or non-compliant project adjustments. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a systematic, data-driven evaluation that directly addresses the stated objectives of the health IT project. By focusing on predefined metrics and established assessment frameworks, it ensures objectivity and allows for quantifiable improvements. This aligns with regulatory expectations for demonstrating the value and impact of health IT investments, such as those mandated by HIPAA for privacy and security and meaningful use. Now promoting interoperability, criteria for effective use of electronic health records. Such an approach fosters accountability and provides a clear basis for future decision-making and resource allocation, ensuring that the project continues to meet its intended goals and regulatory obligations. An incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or immediate operational demands fails to provide a robust assessment. This can lead to decisions that do not address the root causes of issues, potentially exacerbating problems or introducing new risks. From a regulatory perspective, this approach may violate requirements for demonstrating due diligence in system implementation and ongoing management. For instance, ignoring objective performance data in favor of anecdotal feedback could lead to a system that, while perceived as easier to use by some, may compromise data accuracy or patient safety, thereby contravening regulations like the HITECH Act's emphasis on meaningful use and patient privacy. Another incorrect approach that focuses on superficial changes without deep analysis of underlying system functionality or workflow integration risks creating a band-aid solution. This can lead to continued inefficiencies and potential compliance gaps. Ethically, it fails to uphold the professional responsibility to ensure that health IT systems are implemented and managed in a way that truly benefits patient care and organizational operations. Such an approach might also overlook critical security vulnerabilities or privacy breaches that are not immediately apparent from surface-level feedback, thus failing to meet the stringent requirements of HIPAA. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a structured approach to evaluation. This begins with clearly defining project objectives and success criteria, which should be measurable and aligned with organizational goals and regulatory mandates. Next, relevant stakeholders should be identified, and their input systematically gathered through appropriate methods, e.g., surveys, interviews, focus groups. This feedback should then be triangulated with objective performance data and system logs. The evaluation should employ established health IT assessment frameworks, e.g., those related to usability, interoperability, security, and clinical impact, to ensure a comprehensive and objective review. Finally, findings should be analyzed to identify root causes of any identified issues, and recommendations for process optimization should be prioritized based on their potential impact on project goals, patient care, and regulatory compliance. Question 13. Which approach would be most effective in ensuring seamless and compliant integration of digital imaging and communications in medicine, DICOM, data across a healthcare organization's diverse information systems, while adhering to U.S. regulatory frameworks such as HIPAA? Option A. Thoroughly review and validate vendor DICOM conformance statements for all imaging modalities and PACS systems, and ensure that implemented configurations align with these statements and organizational security policies. Option B. Rely on the default DICOM configuration provided by the Picture Archiving and Communication System, PACS, vendor without further validation. Option C. Prioritize rapid deployment of imaging systems, assuming that most modern systems are inherently DICOM compliant and secure. Option D. Implement a proprietary imaging format for internal use, with a plan to convert to DICOM only when data needs to be shared externally. The correct answer is A. Thoroughly review and validate vendor DICOM conformance statements for all imaging modalities and PACS systems, and ensure that implemented configurations align with these statements and organizational security policies. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT, ensuring interoperability and data integrity for medical imaging across different systems and vendors. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for efficient data exchange with strict adherence to regulatory requirements and patient privacy. Careful judgment is required to select an implementation strategy that is both technically sound and compliant. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes adherence to established standards and regulatory mandates. By focusing on implementing DICOM conformance statements and ensuring vendor compliance with these statements, healthcare organizations can guarantee that imaging data is exchanged in a standardized, secure, and interpretable format. This directly supports the goals of the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, in the United States, specifically its security rule, which mandates safeguards for electronic protected health information. E5. Proper DICOM implementation ensures that imaging data, a critical component of EPHI, is protected from unauthorized access, alteration, or destruction during transmission and storage. It also facilitates seamless integration with other certified health IT, a key objective of meaningful use, now part of the Promoting Interoperability programs, which aims to improve patient care through the use of electronic health records. Implementing DICOM without a clear understanding of vendor conformance statements is professionally unacceptable. This approach risks creating data silos or incompatible systems, leading to potential data loss or corruption. It also fails to adequately address HIPAA requirements for data integrity and security, as non-standardized data is more vulnerable to breaches and misinterpretation. Furthermore, it undermines the principles of interoperability that are central to modern healthcare IT infrastructure and regulatory incentives. Adopting a proprietary imaging format for internal use, even if it can be converted to DICOM for external exchange, introduces unnecessary complexity and risk. The strategy can lead to vendor lock-in, making future system upgrades or integrations more difficult and costly. Ethically, it raises concerns about data accessibility and the ability of authorized personnel to access patient information in a timely and complete manner, potentially impacting patient care. From a regulatory standpoint, while not directly violating HIPAA, it creates an environment where ensuring consistent compliance with data security and exchange standards becomes more challenging. Relying solely on the PACS vendors' default configuration without verification is a significant professional and regulatory failure. Default configurations may not be optimized for the specific needs of the organization, or may not fully comply with all relevant HIPAA security rule provisions or interoperability standards. This oversight can lead to security vulnerabilities, data integrity issues, and non-compliance with certification requirements for health IT. It demonstrates a lack of due diligence in ensuring the secure and effective management of sensitive patient data. Professionals should approach DICOM implementation by first thoroughly understanding the organization's interoperability needs and regulatory obligations. This involves reviewing vendor DICOM conformance statements, conducting rigorous testing of data exchange between systems, and establishing clear policies and procedures for image management. A risk assessment should be performed to identify potential vulnerabilities and ensure that appropriate safeguards are in place to protect EPHI. Continuous monitoring and periodic reevaluation of the implementation are crucial to maintain compliance and optimize performance. Question 14. The review process indicates a need to evaluate the primary clinical information system, CIS, components within a U.S.-based hospital. Considering the regulatory framework of the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, and the goal of improving patient care coordination, which of the following approaches best ensures the effective integration and utilization of CIS components? Option A. Emphasizing the development of a highly intuitive and visually appealing user interface, UI, for the EHR, as user adoption is the primary driver of system success. Option B. Prioritizing the seamless integration and interoperability of the electronic health record (EHR) with the laboratory information system, LIS, and the picture archiving and communication system, PACS, to facilitate comprehensive data access for clinicians. Option C. Focusing on acquiring the most advanced data analytics and reporting modules for the EHR, assuming that improved reporting will inherently lead to better data quality and utilization. Option D. Implementing a standalone electronic health record (EHR) system with robust internal functionalities, without significant emphasis on integration with other clinical systems. The correct answer is B. Prioritizing the seamless integration and interoperability of the electronic health record (EHR) with the laboratory information system, LIS, and the picture archiving and communication system, PACS, to facilitate comprehensive data access for clinicians. Explanation. The review process indicates a potential gap in the understanding of how different components of a clinical information system, CIS, interact to ensure patient safety and regulatory compliance. This scenario is professionally challenging because a misunderstanding of these interdependencies can lead to suboptimal system design, implementation, or utilization, directly impacting the quality of care and potentially violating regulations like HIPAA in the U.S. Careful judgment is required to ensure that each component functions as intended and integrates seamlessly with others to support clinical workflows and data integrity. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes the integration and interoperability of CIS components to support comprehensive patient care and meet regulatory mandates. Specifically, focusing on the interoperability of the electronic health record (EHR) with the laboratory information system (LIS) and the picture archiving and communication system (PACS) ensures that critical patient data e.g., lab results, imaging reports, is readily available to clinicians at the point of care. This aligns with the U.S. regulatory framework's emphasis on data accessibility and accuracy for informed decision-making, as mandated by HIPAA privacy rule and security rule, and further supported by meaningful use/promoting interoperability criteria, which encourage seamless data exchange. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on the standalone functionality of the EHR, without considering its integration with other clinical systems, is professionally unacceptable. This failure to ensure interoperability creates data silos, hindering clinicians' ability to access a complete patient picture. This can lead to medical errors, delayed diagnoses, and inefficient workflows, potentially violating the HIPAA requirement for appropriate safeguards to protect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of electronic protected health information. E5. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes the acquisition of advanced reporting tools for the EHR without ensuring the underlying data quality and integration from other systems is also professionally flawed. Robust reporting is only valuable if it is based on accurate, complete, and timely data. Without proper integration with LIS and PACS, the reports generated may be incomplete or misleading, failing to support effective clinical decision-making, and potentially contravening the spirit of regulations aimed at improving patient outcomes through data utilization. Finally, an approach that emphasizes the user interface, UI, design of the EHR above all else, while important for usability, is insufficient if it neglects the critical back-end integrations. A visually appealing system that cannot reliably exchange data with other essential clinical systems will ultimately fail to support safe and efficient patient care and may not meet the data integrity and accessibility requirements implicitly or explicitly stated in U.S. healthcare regulations. The professional reasoning process for such situations should involve a holistic assessment of CIS components, prioritizing interoperability and data integrity to support patient safety and regulatory compliance. Professionals should consider how each component contributes to the overall clinical workflow and data flow, ensuring that integration points are robust and that data is accurate, accessible, and secure across the entire system. This requires understanding the specific requirements of regulations like HIPAA and how they translate into technical and operational best practices for CIS. Question 15. The analysis reveals that a healthcare organization is evaluating new clinical information systems, CIS, to enhance patient care and operational efficiency. The primary considerations for the selection process are cost-effectiveness, ease of integration with existing infrastructure, and the vendor's reputation for customer support. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and best practices for implementing a CIS in the United States? Option A. Select the CIS with the lowest upfront cost and the most straightforward integration plan, assuming that vendor reputation for customer support will mitigate any potential compliance or security issues. Option B. Choose a CIS based primarily on its perceived ability to streamline administrative tasks and reduce billing errors, with minimal emphasis on clinical workflow impact or data security beyond basic compliance checks. Option C. Focus on a CIS that offers advanced clinical decision support features, even if it requires significant customization and bypasses some standard security protocols to expedite deployment. Option D. Prioritize a CIS that undergoes rigorous security risk assessments, demonstrates robust audit trail capabilities, and has a clear strategy for meeting promoting interoperability objectives, with clinical end-user involvement throughout the selection and implementation phases. Correct answer is D. Prioritize a CIS that undergoes rigorous security risk assessments, demonstrates robust audit trail capabilities, and has a clear strategy for meeting promoting interoperability objectives, with clinical end-user involvement throughout the selection and implementation phases. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT, balancing the need for efficient clinical information system (CIS) implementation with robust patient safety and data integrity, all within the strict confines of U.S. healthcare regulations. The professional challenge lies in ensuring that the chosen CIS not only meets functional requirements, but also adheres to the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, security rule and meaningful use, now promoting interoperability objectives, which are paramount for patient privacy, data security, and interoperability. Careful judgment is required to avoid compromising patient care or incurring regulatory penalties. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a comprehensive, multi-stakeholder evaluation that directly addresses regulatory compliance and patient safety. This involves a thorough risk assessment to identify potential vulnerabilities in data handling and access controls, aligning with HIPAA security rule requirements for safeguarding electronic protected health information, E5. Furthermore, it ensures the system's design supports the Promoting Interoperability Program's goals by facilitating secure data exchange and patient engagement, which are critical for quality patient care and regulatory adherence. Engaging clinical end users throughout the process guarantees that the system is not only compliant, but also usable and effective in improving clinical workflows and patient outcomes. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on cost reduction without a commensurate evaluation of security and compliance features would be professionally unacceptable. This failure would directly violate the HIPAA security rule's mandate for risk analysis and management, potentially exposing EPHI to unauthorized access or breaches. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes rapid deployment over thorough testing and validation of clinical decision support, CDS, functionalities would be ethically problematic. Inadequate CDS can lead to medical errors, directly impacting patient safety and contravening the ethical obligation to provide competent care. A third incorrect approach that neglects to involve clinical staff in the selection and configuration process risks implementing a system that is not aligned with actual clinical workflows, leading to user frustration, workarounds that bypass security protocols, and ultimately, suboptimal patient care and potential noncompliance with interoperability standards. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a clear understanding of regulatory mandates, HIPAA, promoting interoperability. This should be followed by a comprehensive needs assessment involving all relevant stakeholders, including clinicians, IT security, and compliance officers. A robust vendor evaluation process that scrutinizes security certifications, audit trails, and data governance policies is essential. Finally, a phased implementation with continuous monitoring and user feedback loops ensures that the CIS effectively supports patient care while maintaining the highest standards of data security and regulatory compliance. Question 16. The risk matrix shows a high likelihood of a data breach involving sensitive patient health information due to inadequate access controls on a legacy EHR system. As the designated data steward, you have identified this critical vulnerability. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure compliance with healthcare data governance principles and regulatory requirements? Option A. Escalate the identified high-risk vulnerability to the Data Governance Committee and initiate a phased remediation plan, implementing temporary compensating controls while a permanent solution is developed. Option B. Inform clinical staff about the potential risk and instruct them to be extra vigilant, but defer any technical remediation until a less disruptive time. Option C. Continue to monitor the situation without immediate action, assuming the risk is manageable given the system's current operational status and the potential disruption of implementing changes. Option D. Implement an immediate, informal workaround to restrict access, bypassing formal change control and governance procedures to address the vulnerability quickly. The correct answer is A. Escalate the identified high-risk vulnerability to the Data Governance Committee and initiate a phased remediation plan, implementing temporary compensating controls while a permanent solution is developed. Explanation: the risk matrix shows a high likelihood of a data breach involving sensitive patient health information due to inadequate access controls on a legacy electronic health record (EHR) system. This scenario is professionally challenging because it pits the immediate need for system functionality and data accessibility for patient care against the imperative to protect patient privacy and comply with stringent healthcare regulations. The data steward, responsible for the quality, integrity, and security of this data, faces a direct conflict between operational demands and regulatory obligations. The correct approach, which involves immediately escalating the identified high-risk vulnerability to the appropriate governance committee and initiating a phased remediation plan while implementing temporary compensating controls, represents best professional practice. This aligns with the principles of data governance and stewardship, emphasizing proactive risk management and adherence to regulatory frameworks such as HIPAA, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. In the U.S., HIPAA mandates the protection of protected health information (FI) and requires covered entities to implement administrative, physical, and technical safeguards. Escalating the issue ensures that the organization's leadership is aware of the critical risk and can allocate resources for proper remediation. Implementing temporary controls demonstrates a commitment to mitigating risk while a permanent solution is developed, thus upholding the ethical duty to protect patient data. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the risk matrix findings due to the perceived disruption to clinical workflows. This failure directly violates the spirit and letter of HIPAA security rule, which requires risk analysis and management. It also represents a breach of data stewardship responsibilities, as the steward has a duty to ensure data integrity and security. Another incorrect approach would be to implement a quick, ad hoc fix without proper documentation or testing, which could introduce new vulnerabilities or fail to adequately address the root cause, thereby also violating regulatory requirements for documented security measures and risk mitigation. Finally, attempting to bypass established governance processes to implement a fix without proper authorization or oversight undermines the entire data governance framework, potentially leading to inconsistent security practices and increased organizational liability. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes patient safety and data privacy. This involves 1. Thoroughly understanding the identified risks and their potential impact, referencing the risk matrix. 2. Consulting relevant organizational policies and regulatory requirements, e.g., HIPAA. 3. Communicating the risks and potential solutions to relevant stakeholders, including IT, clinical leadership, and the Data Governance Committee. 4. Developing and proposing a remediation plan that balances security needs with operational requirements, including temporary measures if necessary. 5. Ensuring all actions are documented and comply with established governance protocols. Question 17. Risk assessment procedures indicate that a newly developed clinical decision support (CDS) alert for potential drug-drug interactions within the electronic health record (EHR) system may cause significant alert fatigue among prescribers, potentially leading to a decrease in the appropriate response to critical alerts. What is the most appropriate course of action to ensure both patient safety and effective EHR utilization? Option A. Implement the CDS alert across all clinical departments immediately to maximize its potential patient safety benefits. Option B. Deactivate the CDS alert system entirely due to the identified risk of alert fatigue, pending further review of alternative patient safety measures. Option C. Deploy the CDS alert system-wide, focusing solely on optimizing the technical configuration of the alert without involving end users in the testing phase. Option D. Conduct a pilot program in a selected clinical unit to evaluate the alert's performance, gather clinician feedback, and refine its parameters before a full-scale rollout. Correct answer is D. Conduct a pilot program in a selected clinical unit to evaluate the alert's performance, gather clinician feedback, and refine its parameters before a full-scale rollout. Explanation: scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT where the implementation of a new EHR functionality, specifically a clinical decision support (CDS) alert for medication interactions, introduces potential risks. The challenge lies in balancing the benefits of enhanced patient safety with the operational impact on clinicians and the potential for alert fatigue. A thorough risk assessment is crucial to identify, analyze, and mitigate these risks before widespread deployment, ensuring compliance with patient safety regulations and promoting effective use of health IT. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a phased rollout of the CDS alert, beginning with a pilot program in a controlled environment. This allows for real-world testing of the alert's effectiveness, accuracy, and impact on clinician workflow. Data collected during the pilot can inform necessary adjustments to alert thresholds, content, and integration with existing workflows. This iterative process, guided by user feedback and performance metrics, aligns with best practices for health IT implementation and regulatory expectations for patient safety, such as those promoted by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology, ONC, in the U.S. It ensures that the functionality is optimized to reduce adverse events without unduly burdening clinicians, thereby promoting the meaningful use of EHRs. Incorrect approaches analysis. Implementing the CDS alert system-wide without prior testing or pilot evaluation is a significant regulatory and ethical failure. It disregards the principle of patient safety by potentially introducing disruptive or inaccurate alerts that could lead to clinician override or missed critical information, increasing the risk of adverse drug events. This approach fails to adhere to the spirit of regulations like the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA, which, while primarily focused on privacy, also underpins the need for secure and effective health information systems that support quality care. It also bypasses established best practices for health IT adoption, which emphasize validation and refinement. Disabling the CDS alert system entirely based on initial concerns about alert fatigue, without exploring mitigation strategies or further analysis, is also professionally unsound. This approach prioritizes operational convenience over potential patient safety improvements. It fails to leverage the capabilities of the EHR to proactively identify and prevent harm, a core objective of health IT meaningful use. Such a decision could be seen as a failure to implement recognized patient safety measures, potentially violating standards of care and best practices for EHR utilization. Focusing solely on the technical configuration of the alert without engaging end users, clinicians, in the testing and refinement process is another critical failure. EHR functionalities are only effective if they are usable and integrated into clinical workflows. Ignoring clinician input can lead to the development of a system that is technically sound but practically unworkable, resulting in low adoption rates, alert fatigue, and ultimately, a failure to achieve the intended patient safety benefits. This neglects the human-computer interaction aspect crucial for successful health IT implementation and patient safety. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a systematic, evidence-based approach to implementing new EHR functionalities. This involves a thorough risk assessment, followed by a phased implementation strategy that includes pilot testing, user engagement, and continuous monitoring and refinement. The decision-making process should prioritize patient safety, regulatory compliance, and clinical workflow integration. When faced with potential risks, the professional approach is to identify, analyze, and mitigate those risks through controlled testing and iterative improvement, rather than making hasty decisions to implement or abandon functionalities without sufficient data or user input. Question 18. During the evaluation of a healthcare organization's strategy for integrating its electronic health record, (EHR) system with its billing and scheduling platforms, a key concern is ensuring that patient demographic and clinical encounter data flows accurately and securely to support both patient care coordination and financial operations. The organization is considering several approaches to achieve this integration. Which approach best balances technical efficiency with regulatory compliance and patient privacy under U.S. healthcare regulations? Option A. Implement a phased integration strategy utilizing HL7 standards for data exchange, incorporating robust encryption for data in transit and at rest, and conducting comprehensive security and interoperability testing at each phase. Option B. Develop custom, direct database-to-database interfaces for each data element required, prioritizing speed of data transfer over standardized formats and security protocols. Option C. Rely on manual data entry from one system to another for all patient demographic and encounter information, assuming that human oversight will mitigate any data integrity or security risks. Option D. Integrate systems using a proprietary middleware solution that aggregates data without explicitly adhering to industry interoperability standards or implementing comprehensive data encryption, as long as the data appears to be accessible. The correct answer is A. Implement a phased integration strategy utilizing HL7 standards for data exchange, incorporating robust encryption for data in transit and at rest, and conducting comprehensive security and interoperability testing at each phase. Explanation: this scenario presents a common challenge in healthcare IT, ensuring seamless data flow between disparate systems to support both clinical care and operational efficiency. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need for integrated data with the stringent requirements of patient privacy, data security, and regulatory compliance, particularly under U.S. healthcare regulations like HIPAA. Careful judgment is required to select an integration strategy that is both technically sound and legally defensible. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, standards-based integration that includes robust security measures and thorough testing. This aligns with the principles of the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, HIPAA security rule, which mandates administrative, physical, and technical safeguards to protect electronic protected health information, E5. Utilizing established interoperability standards like HL7 ensures that data can be exchanged in a structured and meaningful way, facilitating accurate reporting and analysis for both clinical and administrative purposes. A phased approach allows for controlled implementation, risk mitigation, and validation at each stage, minimizing disruption and ensuring compliance. An incorrect approach that bypasses established interoperability standards and relies on custom, ad hoc data transfers poses significant regulatory and ethical failures. This method is highly susceptible to data breaches and unauthorized access, violating HIPAA privacy and security rules. Lack of standardized data formats increases the risk of data corruption, misinterpretation, and incomplete information, which can negatively impact patient care and lead to inaccurate administrative processes. Furthermore, such an approach makes auditing and demonstrating compliance with regulations extremely difficult. Another incorrect approach that focuses solely on the technical feasibility of data transfer without considering data governance, security protocols, or patient consent mechanisms is also professionally unacceptable. This overlooks the ethical obligation to protect patient privacy and the legal mandate to secure ePHI. Without a comprehensive strategy that addresses data ownership, access controls, and audit trails, the organization risks non-compliance with HIPAA and potential breaches of trust with patients. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a thorough risk assessment, a clear understanding of regulatory requirements, such as HIPAA, and a commitment to adopting industry best practices for health information exchange. This includes evaluating various integration methodologies, prioritizing security and privacy by design, and engaging stakeholders from both clinical and administrative departments to ensure the chosen solution meets all functional and compliance needs. A structured, iterative approach with continuous monitoring and validation is crucial for successful and compliant system integration. Question 19. Compliance review shows that a large healthcare system has implemented a new electronic health record, EHR, system that has achieved ONC certification. However, the system's internal IT governance structure has maintained strict data silos between different departments, and the system has not actively pursued integration with external health information networks beyond its immediate affiliated providers. Furthermore, the organization has not proactively developed patient-facing portals or tools to facilitate easy access to their complete health records, relying instead on paper requests. Considering the role of the ONC in promoting interoperability and patient access to health information, which of the following approaches best aligns with ONC's regulatory framework and objectives? Option A. Maintain the current data silo structure to ensure departmental data integrity and focus on optimizing internal workflows within the certified EHR system. Option B. Continue to rely on manual processes for patient record requests and focus IT resources on enhancing the EHR's internal clinical decision support features, deferring broader interoperability efforts. Option C. Actively pursue participation in the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement (TEFCA) and implement patient access functionalities that align with ONC's certification criteria for the EHR system. Option D. Prioritize the development of proprietary data exchange protocols to facilitate communication with a select group of trusted external partners, bypassing broader interoperability initiatives. The correct answer is C. Actively pursue participation in the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement (TEFCA), and implement patient access functionalities that align with ONC's certification criteria for the EHR system. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because it requires navigating the complex interplay between a healthcare organization's internal policies, the evolving landscape of health IT interoperability, and the specific mandates and guidance issued by the Office of the National Coordinator for Health Information Technology, ONC. Under U.S. federal law, the organization must ensure its practices align with ONC's vision for a connected health ecosystem, while also safeguarding patient privacy and security. Careful judgment is required to interpret ONC's regulations and guidance in the context of practical implementation, and to avoid actions that could lead to non-compliance or hinder the achievement of national health IT goals. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it directly addresses the ONC's core objectives for advancing health IT interoperability and patient access to information. By actively engaging with ONC's initiatives, such as the Trusted Exchange Framework and Common Agreement (TEFCA), and by ensuring that the organization's certified health IT is designed to meet ONC's certification criteria, the organization demonstrates a commitment to national interoperability standards. This proactive stance not only ensures compliance, but also positions the organization to leverage the benefits of a more connected healthcare system, ultimately improving patient care and outcomes. This aligns with the ONC's mission to promote the adoption and meaningful use of health IT. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on internal data silos without considering ONC's interoperability mandates represents a significant regulatory failure. It ignores the explicit requirements for certified health IT to be capable of exchanging electronic health information (EHI) and to support patient access. This approach risks noncompliance with the ONC Health IT certification program and could lead to penalties. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes proprietary data formats over adherence to ONC-specified standards for information exchange would also be a regulatory failure. This undermines the fundamental principles of interoperability that ONC promotes and hinders the ability of different health IT systems to communicate effectively, violating the spirit and letter of ONC's regulations. A third incorrect approach that neglects to implement mechanisms for patient access to their EHI, as mandated by ONC regulations, would be a direct ethical and regulatory failure, infringing upon patient rights and ONC's patient-centered goals. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of current ONC regulations and guidance, including specific certification criteria and information blocking rules. This should be followed by an assessment of the organization's current health IT infrastructure and practices against these requirements. The next step involves identifying any gaps and developing strategies to bridge them, prioritizing actions that align with ONC's objectives for interoperability, patient access, and data security. Continuous monitoring of ONC updates and engagement with industry best practices are crucial for sustained compliance and effective health IT management. Question 20. Strategic planning requires a comprehensive evaluation of approaches for implementing fast healthcare interoperability resources, FHIR, to enhance data exchange. Which of the following approaches best aligns with regulatory requirements and professional best practices for ensuring secure and effective interoperability within the U.S. healthcare landscape? Option A. Prioritize a phased implementation of FHIR, beginning with a thorough security risk assessment and validation of FHIR resources against relevant U.S. core implementation guides, ensuring all data exchange adheres to HIPAA security rule requirements. Option B. Implement FHIR primarily for internal data aggregation, limiting external data exchange to legacy formats, and only considering FHIR for external interoperability in later stages after internal systems are fully optimized. Option C. Expedite FHIR adoption by immediately integrating with external systems using basic FHIR APIs, deferring comprehensive security audits and detailed validation of data structures until after initial operationalization. Option D. Focus on developing custom FHIR profiles tailored to unique organizational needs without initially validating them against established U.S. core implementation guides or conducting extensive security testing, assuming future compliance. The correct answer is A. Prioritize a phased implementation of FHIR, beginning with a thorough security risk assessment and validation of FHIR resources against relevant U.S. core implementation guides, ensuring all data exchange adheres to HIPAA security rule requirements. Explanation: this scenario is professionally challenging because implementing fast healthcare interoperability resources, FHIR, for data exchange involves navigating complex technical requirements, ensuring patient privacy and security, and adhering to stringent regulatory mandates. The pressure to achieve interoperability quickly can lead to shortcuts that compromise compliance and patient trust. Careful judgment is required to balance the benefits of FHIR with the imperative to protect sensitive health information. The correct approach represents best professional practice because it prioritizes a phased, standards-compliant implementation that includes robust security measures and thorough testing. This aligns with the principles of responsible health IT adoption, emphasizing patient safety and data integrity. Specifically, it adheres to U.S. regulatory frameworks such as HIPAA, which mandates the protection of protected health information, PHI, and requires appropriate safeguards for electronic PHI, EPHI. By focusing on FHIR security and privacy capabilities and ensuring alignment with HIPAA security rule, the organization demonstrates a commitment to lawful and ethical data handling. This approach also fosters trust among patients and partners by showcasing a dedication to secure and compliant interoperability. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on rapid deployment without adequate security validation would represent a significant regulatory and ethical failure. This would violate HIPAA security rule, which requires covered entities to implement administrative, physical, and technical safeguards to protect ePHI. Failing to conduct thorough security risk assessments and implement appropriate controls could lead to data breaches, resulting in substantial fines, reputational damage, and loss of patient confidence. Another incorrect approach that neglects to ensure FHIR resource validation against established profiles and implementation guides would also be problematic. This could lead to inconsistent data interpretation, hindering true interoperability and potentially impacting clinical decision-making, which indirectly affects patient care and safety. Furthermore, it could be seen as a failure to implement systems in a manner that supports the intended use of interoperable data, a core tenet of health IT advancement. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a comprehensive understanding of regulatory requirements, e.g., HIPAA in the U.S. This should be followed by a thorough assessment of technical capabilities and potential risks associated with FHIR implementation. Prioritizing a phased approach that incorporates continuous security testing, validation against standards, and stakeholder engagement ensures that interoperability goals are met without compromising patient privacy or regulatory compliance. This iterative process allows for adjustments based on evolving best practices and emerging threats.